on global. Actually, it's the highest account currently with no Lady Alexandra, but I might be the first SSS with with no Lady Alex, and the awakenings are not high. Hey guys, the brand new codex just came out, and it is hard. It is hero locked as hell, and honestly, it's fun, but it's also very hard to understand, to make teams for, and to execute properly. There is a lot going on, so I'm going to try to explain it as best I can, going into the potential teams you may use, going into how the boss works, going into some no Beelzebub teams because he is incredibly important, and also teams with Beelzebub, how to place, how to trigger your ults. Everything you need to know is going to be in this video, and I hope this will help you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe, all that stuff. But first of all, I have to just quickly flex that I am one of the few people, at least currently, at a very high score, at least for this boss, without Beelzebub. Now, there is one guy who is incredibly high without him. This guy, Patrick Starr, shout out to him. This team is amazing, but he's running A3 Lady Alex. This is what it requires. It requires Fenris, a unit that no one pulled for, Lady Alexandra, A3, with a max exclusive artifact, and full, perfect stat, Infernal Roar, in order to even compete without him. Now, this team just popped up. This team is also really impressive, but I'm gonna just show you guys how you can get to a solid score without Beelzebub and kind of explain along the way and give some alternatives. But first of all, let's go into how this boss works. Now, Mother of Crows is very interesting. It's more about killing the minions than it is about killing the boss. The boss is only in the field a couple times. So what you're gonna see, just as an example run, is when I place a couple units down, when we damage the boss, she's going to split into 3 crows. It'll go up to 6 in later rounds, but basically she turns into crows, and these crows do not want to take damage. As you can see by Yovar hitting that crow, 2,000 damage. That is nothing. Well, how do you do damage against these things? You can place down Mari. Slows are king for this stage. Slows are exactly what allows you to do damage, as well as stuns and freezes. As you can see, he was stunned there and took a ton of damage. That is exactly what you need to have during this fight. But as you can see, despite doing a ton of damage when they're slowed, when they are, at a certain point stunned or frozen, sometimes they will actually gain a shield. And the way you deal with the shield is you have to stun or freeze them. It's very complicated, but that is kind of how it works. So let's go through it again just to show it off one more time. They split into crows. Our slows do a lot of damage. And once they reach this flame, sometimes they will get a shield, and no longer are you able to do solid damage. Now, the shield will go away, but you could also force it to go away. So here we're going to place down Boreas. We're going to freeze it, and it immediately strips the shield, and we're able to deal damage again. So you want a combination of slows, and you want a combination of CC. Very, very important. Now, what happens once you kill all of these crows? What is the point? Well, the point is that is the only way to kill the boss. Once you kill all of the crows, it will allow the boss to appear in a vulnerable state. And this is where you get all of your damage. Now, before you get into the actual fight, when you do a certain amount of damage, the boss usually likes to split into crows again. But once we get into the actual fight, it's on a timer. So just keep that in mind going into this, that kill the crows, deal damage to the boss, and then you win. That is kind of how this goes. So you want to have a healthy dose of CC, and you want to have a healthy dose of damage, single target damage. That's very important, and that's most of how the boss works. Now, there is a couple other things related to the boss that are very important. The main thing being Unholy Trinity. This ability is miserable. So basically, Bloodbeak is one of the birds. It does certain things based on the birds, by the way. Bloodbeak deals damage to all heroes on the battlefield and reduces their attack. Chains deals damage to all heroes and reduces their attack speed. Curse deals damage to all heroes on the battlefield, dealing continuous damage and reduces their rate. Now, Curse is the most annoying, the one you want to deal with the most, and that is the green bird, I'm pretty sure. The green bird is the main priority to kill to avoid that ability being problematic. But in my experience, I've had the most issue killing the red birds. So I am going to be focusing the red birds more during my run and less the green birds. It depends purely on your team composition and what you are running. Just keep that in mind. Now, there are a couple other things that the boss does, but basically you just want to be killing the crows as fast as possible to do damage to the boss and also to keep yourself from taking damage, because if the birds are dead, they cannot deal damage to you. Very, very important. Now, something else I want to note is the reason why Beelzebub is the best unit for this, aside from Yovar and Silas and Hex, which we'll get into in a second. The reason why Beelzebub is so good is, as you can see in my team without him, I don't have an inspiration unit. And inspiration is very important. These enemies have so much resistance when they're not being CC'd that obviously attack is going to increase the chance of doing damage to them, or increase the amount of damage I can do to them. But I can't run Diao-chan or Dolores because their range is just bad. The way that this stage is formatted is 2 tiles next to each other, across from each other. And the only inspiration unit that can hit more than 1 unit to boost them is Beelzebub. Beelzebub can cover 3 entire units and give them inspiration. Outside of that, he also has some of the best slows in the game. He will slow an entire side on his own with no effort. Then you're able to deal damage, obviously. He's insane for that. He also puts out magic resistance on target, which means that he increases Hex's damage. And if you're running a Talon, if you're running anything else, magic damage related, he's going to boost them a freaking ton. Beelzebub is that guy. If you have him, you must use him. He is almost a requirement. He is a requirement for SSS. Getting above SS is like impossible without him. It's miserable, right? But what are some other options you can use? Or even if you have him, what should you use? Well, first of all, Yovar is incredibly important. He's the best lord for this by far. He boosts the 3 best DPS for this, and he does a ton of damage. I mean, you look at the leaderboard, he's doing a lot of damage. He's also boosting Silas, Lady Alexandra, and Hex, which are the 3 best DPS for this. Yay, another area where Lady Alex is almost required. Yay, no one has hit really that crazy of a score without her yet. I find that very annoying, but that is the case anyways. Hex is also very good. I would say the Hex is probably one of the best units for this as well, because of his stuns and his high damage. Also, Lady Alexandra can hit anywhere on the map and does ridiculous single target damage. Yuri is really good. Talon is really good. Mari is the person I am using. She is really good. Anora is solid, but kind of needs awakenings. Malric is surprisingly, shockingly good. He can do a ton of CC. He can boost your heroes, and he's just all around really good for this. So I think Malric is incredibly solid, really worth picking up. Calypso, due to her buffs with like exclusive gear and exclusive artifact, she can be used. Theon has range, was really good. I saw a greed team. Nyx can be used as damage. Fenris can be used for CC. Glacius is kind of weird, but you could use a pretty much endless combination of units. I think Boreas is also incredibly valuable due to his stuns and the fact that he does a lot of damage. So there's a lot of units you can use, but the core is going to be Yovar, Silas, Hex, and then a CC unit or 2. I'm using Razak purely because he's A5. I'll show the gear afterwards, but let me go into how the run works. Also, the RNG is so outrageous to the point where it's kind of hard to deal with it. So just keep that in mind. So first of all, placement wise, we do Hex first. Hex is the person I want to get the damage boost. He is incredibly important. Whoever he stuns, that's going to be a lot of damage. Because his stun will allow us to do damage, and he's just a really good DPS overall, especially for the boss, especially because I have him awakened more than like my Yovar and stuff. And then we're going to place Mari next to him. Mari has Invig on her, so he's going to get boosted. And then we place our 2 other DPS at the bottom. Now, the reason why I said I focus the red bird the most is because I place my Hex and my Mari at the top. This kind of deprioritizes the green bird, which I said to focus on. So this placement you might want to invert, but it works for me. Then we're going to essentially place Boreas and Razak on the right. This is just to mop up the birds that the first group misses, and also to try to kill these birds as soon as I can, as you can see right there, so we can get, obviously, things on the road. Also, something you're going to see me do a lot is Mari ulting as soon as the birds come out. You're going to see that after this first portion, which doesn't really matter that much. And here we're going to be triggering ults pretty often. I know I kind of talked it up like this is incredibly difficult, but realistically, it's just spam your ults. Here, Mari might not be back in time. I'll try to click her ult immediately, and this will just immediately stun the red bird. And when we get to the point where 6 birds start to spawn, we're going to be able to stun or freeze, I guess I should say, the middle bird as well. And the kind of goal is, because I'm not prioritizing the green bird, and it can be a big threat if the boss ends up getting off their attack, which will happen if we don't kill the birds fast enough, what I can do is I can try to insta-kill the top 2, and then it'll allow us to prioritize the bottom one. Now, it is going to very heavily depend on Hex RNG, unfortunately, because he is our only CC for that bird, but it is what worked best for me, and I tried a lot of freaking things, man. This boss was a doozy to figure out. Anyways, we're going to continue to deal as much damage as we can, deal with the birds as best we can, and then deal as much damage to the boss. I know I talked like this was incredibly difficult, but once you kind of understand the boss on a fundamental level, here I missed Mario because I'm dumb, then you're able to kind of deal with it all together a lot easier, which is really nice. So here, thing dies, and then we can trigger our ultimates. Now, something that Mari also does, I think, is increase your single target damage. So that's why I'm seeing her the most. And also because her slow uptime is really good, and her freezes are really good, and you get what I mean. Anyways, we're going to keep this going as best I can. Already we're at 800,000. We're going to start having people die, though, because Hex RNG, you know, is just not as good as my original run, unfortunately, but hopefully we can keep things going. Now, you will end up being able to heal every once in a while, but it's very random, and obviously it depends on how much HP your units have going into the portion where they take damage, so you just gotta try to keep everyone alive as best you can. But basically, we're hoping that we could, come on, kill the thing! God damn it. No, there we go, finally. Okay, we're gonna just wail on the boss, pray that Silas can live, because he's a really good DPS, and I have beaten my score, which is kind of fun to see. Let's see if we can survive. Most likely we can't. Here our rage is getting affected. Everyone's dying. No, kill the birds, no. And yeah, that's the end of the run. That's kind of all you can do if you don't have Lady Alexandra, or if you don't have Bubba, right? And still, I have a lot of the meta units, which is annoying, which is why I'm kind of pissed off at this boss a little bit, because of how rigid it is. But basically, you can see how that works, right? You place everyone down properly, you understand how they work, and then you just spam ults. Boreas really impressed me. He was a lot better than I thought he would be. Razak really impressed me. My Yovar has bad gear on, so he's not doing as much. And then Hex and Silas are the stars of the show. Here, to go into the gear, Yovar is in Soulbound. You're gonna want attack percent pieces on basically everyone, because if there is no CC effects, then you're not gonna do any damage. Also, I have Ichor Chalice because I did not have his exclusive artifact. Please put his exclusive artifact on. It gives him defense penetration, which is really good. Silas, I still build with a lot of attack. I don't know if you need to, but it is what I chose to do. Lightcrawler's Claw is the best for him. Hex, you want Soulbound, obviously. Suture of Caprice, whatever you call it. You also want his exclusive weapon. I just don't have it. Razak here, same thing. Attack percent, sharpshooter crest, since exclusive is better. I don't have it. Boreas, same thing. You want that soulbound and Tear of Twilight. And then Mari, I put in Invig with as much attack speed and rage regen as I could muster. And a Nightmare Samsara. That is how I built everyone. Let's go over to the Bubba team. So I hopped on my friend's account for literally one attempt and I got top 11 and almost SSS immediately. If I get SSS, this will be the very first account on global. Actually, it's the highest account currently with no Lady Alexandra, but I might be the first SSS with with no Lady Alex, and the awakenings are not high. So if you have Bubba, use this team. Trust me. So first of all, this is the team. Basically, the main things to note awakening wise, A3 Hex lets him ult more often, just makes so he doesn't need that long start time as often. But realistically, you don't need the A3, just the A1. Silas awakenings are not that high. Nyx A3 is kind of important, but for this team, Bubba covers one side, and then Nyx and Mari will cover the other. And it worked so well for me, man. Like, you'll see. You'll see what happens and why I do it this way. So starting off, once we enter in, we're going to place down our main DPS, Silas. Silas is going to be our main DPS. Hex is better when you don't have Bubba. But when you have Bubba, first of all, my Silas build is very different because we have that inspiration. And then I'm going to put Hex at the top and Yovar at the top. Then on the right, I'm going to be putting Nyx. I guess I'll do Nyx here. In the actual run, I inverted them, but I think this might be better. And then I put Mari at the top. And this is just to make it so that we can actually deal with the right. Nyx is AoE damage and a lot of it. And we're just going to kind of see how things go. I mean, here we're going to do Bubba ult just to build up our inspiration, use all of our DPS ults immediately. And then we're basically just going to nuke everything. I mean, the early portions of the stage do not matter, and the time really doesn't matter either, because when we lose, it's because we're dying. It's not because of our damage. So here, as soon as the stage starts, we're going to trigger our ultimates. We're going to kill these birds so freaking fast that I don't see any reason in waiting. And then we're just going to try to nuke the boss down as fast as possible. I think if I build Yovar with some rage regen, I might be able to do 2 ultimates per time that the boss does that type of thing, where she's damageable. But either way, doesn't really matter. We're just going to kill things as much as possible. Boom, Yovar ult, triggering everything as much as possible. Silas is the GOAT for this. He is so good. And we're just going to have to keep an eye on things in general. But I'm not too worried. I mean, holy hell, is Bubba so much stronger than no Bubba, and so much easier, in fact. Just make sure that you have Bubba ult up every single time that Kriya is out, and trigger ults as often as you can, and you should probably be fine. I mean, realistically, it's not that hard once you have everything that you need. That's just kind of how most content works. But already we are past how much I got on my main account. My main account's awakenings are honestly better, minus Nyx, who I'm not using. And it's crazy how big of a difference this makes. Like, I am a little annoyed that is how this goes, but it's okay. Realistically, it's fine. Already at SSS, which is higher than I was able to get, obviously. And we are already higher than the best no Bubba team on this account with relatively accessible awakenings. They are good awakenings, don't get me wrong. And also, I'm not triggering things properly. But realistically, like, this is insane. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Also, sometimes freeze doesn't break those anti-CC shields. I think it might depend on what type of bird it is. I didn't really mention that earlier because I wasn't really sure. But anyways, we're just gonna nuke the boss down already at S+. We're not struggling that much on living. Obviously, it is an issue and kind of something to keep in mind. But realistically, I mean, it's not that big of a problem, you know? Here we might end up dying, which we will, because we didn't get enough good RNG. But you see what I mean, right? It's such a big difference, and I don't like it. This unit that this unit that on release was solid, but at the time was a skip, right? For me and a lot of people, because he was just not usable in a lot of areas if you were later game. Bubba, frankly, is not a unit that was desirable on release. He was overhyped, honestly. But with a buff and new content being designed around him, because I didn't pull for a unit which wasn't worth pulling for, I feel like I'm behind, which is a little annoying. But at the end of the day, I would rather have a unit that is less usable be buffed than stay bad for the fear that people will get upset. I think it's better this way. But I'm just annoyed that I don't have him, because holy is he so good for this. Here's the auto as I kind of do closing remarks or whatever. Basically, if you have Bubba, if you have Yovar, if you have Silas, everything like that, you're going to be happy. I am going to work on this run to hopefully get No Lady Alexandra SSS, because no one has gotten it so far on global server. And I will see how things go. Here we might be at risk of dying already, which is kind of ridiculous, but yeah. I like the boss. I think it's fun. I like it's interesting. It's very RNG, one-dimensional with the heroes. There are some good cultist teams you can use, but for those you require Bubba, and there is no replacement for him. Overall, if you don't have the units, you're not gonna have fun. If you have the units, you'll have a blast. I think it's a net positive for the game, and I'm happy that it exists, and I had fun going through it. Oh, also gear-wise on this account, Yovar, we have a really good Yovar piece here. So and here too. So I just did Cataclysm, because it's basically the same as Soulbound. Sentinel's Eye as the artifact, by far better. Hex, we have Soulbound with an emphasis on attack. Keep in mind though, if you are running Bubba, especially highlighted in the Silas build, you can build Hex with a crit damage main. Silas, I have 2 crit damage mains on him, and he works beautifully, as well as Wicked Vengeance. It's really good. Blightcaller's Claw, as usual. Nyx, Infernal Roar, emphasis on attack because she's not in Bubba range, and then exclusive artifact, by far the best. Bubba is in Invig, as well as Tear of Twilight, for as much attack as possible. And then Mari is in Morale with attack speed and rage regen. Let me know what you guys get in the comments. Let me know if this helped you guys at all. I appreciate you guys for sticking through to the end of the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Destined signing out.